Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all are enjoying the present DSA series which is going on. And in case you are, please do like the video and mention your views in the comment section below. If you want me to come up with a specific topic, then you can always feel free to message me in the socials, and the link is given in the description below. And till then, keep watching and do subscribe to the channel. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. And today we will be looking at another question, which is the maximum and minimum of an array using minimum number of comparisons. So let us first look at what this question means, what it is trying to tell us. So by looking at the statement of the question, we can see that we have to write a function which returns the minimum and the maximum element in the array. It is also mentioned that our program should make the minimum number of comparisons, which means we have to make sure that the time complexity is as less as possible. So given in the explanation, we can see that we are given an array which contains some elements, and we have to actually traverse the array to find out the minimum element in the array and the maximum element in the array. So basically, our program will be printing out the minimum and the maximum element from the given array. So let us first think of a generalized approach. How can we do this? Just pause the video once and think for a while. What can be a possible approach to this question? So, thinking of a very naive approach, we can think that we can run two for loops. One for finding out the minimum element and the other one for finding out the maximum element. We can simply keep on storing it in a new variable that we can initialize and store it by comparing each and every element which is present in the array. Say we compare 5 and 2, then we compare 2 and 9, and ultimately keep on storing the least element in a new variable and find out the minimum element. In the same way, run another for loop to find out the maximum element. But we need to make sure that we run minimum number of loops to make sure that we are making minimum number of comparisons. The more number of loops we run in a nested manner, the more becomes the time complexity. So in order to reduce the time complexity and make sure that we make minimum number of comparisons, in our solution, we will be using only one for loop. So how will we do this? Before moving on to the solution, let us read the question once again. Our question asks us to make a function which returns the minimum and maximum in the array. So in order to make a function with a return type of multiple values, we have to make a structure, a derived data type. Why do we have to do this? Because we have learned in the functions video. In case you have not watched it, please go to the I button and go through the description of what a function is and what is a return type of a function, because that is required in this section. So we know that whenever we define a function, every function has a return type. That return type is basically the data type that the function will return. Here we have the function name and then the parameters that the function has. So this is the basic structure of a function. So this return type has to be some data type, whether it is say integer or it is array and it is string, it can be anything. But here we have to return two values as a part of the return type. For doing this, we need to create our own data type. How do we do this? We create a structure to return multiple values through our function. So when we do it in Java, we use a class. Similarly, for other the syntax through in other languages, you can have a look in the description below. The links have been given. So basically, the generalized thing that we need to do is we have to create a new structure, basically a new data type, which contains two values, the minimum value and the maximum value. Why we are doing this? So that the return type of our function will be pair, which right now just we have created this data type. Then by using this pair data type, our function will be able to return multiple values. Moving on, let us look at what our function will be doing to get the minimum and the maximum element. So the basic approach which we will be using is that we have an array. The array contains some elements. Say we have 5, 4, 3, 1, 2, 6. We have to find the minimum and maximum element from this array. So first of all, what we are doing in our function is we are writing the return type, which is pair, and the name of our function is getMinMax, and the parameters that it is taking in is the array and the length of the array or the size of the array. So we will be using the parameters array and the size of the array. Now, moving forward, what we are doing is we are initializing our new data type, which we had just created, and naming it minmax. So our data type pair is being initialized and given a name minmax, and this is how we initialize a data type in Java. So in case you are familiar with some other language, feel free to check out the links in the description below. Next, what we are doing is we are checking the number of elements in the array. So if, for example, we have an array with just one element in it, then the minimum element is also this and the maximum element is also this. So there is no need for us to check for any other element because there is only one element in the array. In that case, if our length of the array is equal to 1, what we will do is we will set our pair, the value of our pair functions minimum to the 0th element of the array, which is 5, and the maximum element to also the 0th element, which is also 5, which means both our minimum and maximum elements which we were required to return are 5 itself. In that case, we will just return min-max, and our program will end over here, and it will return the min-max function, which contains the value 5 for both of them. And in our main function, we will be simply printing out 5, both for minimum and maximum element present in the array. But if in case there are multiple elements in the array, then what is required for us to be done? Now have a closer look at the array with multiple elements. So what we will do is basically, if there are multiple elements in the array, we will be initializing them to the 0th and first element. That is basically what we are doing. We are checking that out of the 0th element and the first element, which is a greater number. Say, is 5 a greater number or 4 a greater number? So we are in the first condition over here, we are checking that which is a greater element out of 0th and the first element. So on checking, if our 0th element is greater than our first element, what we do is we initialize our pair data type minmax.min to the array of 1, which means the first value, which is the lesser. So minimum will be the element which has lesser value, and maximum obviously will be element having the larger value. So we are initializing them. Otherwise, else, using the if-else loop, we check else if the 0th element is lesser than the first element, then we do the opposite. Then minmax.min is defined to the 0th element, and minmax.max is initialized to the first element. Why we are doing this is because we wish to compare it with the rest of the elements in the array. Once we have initialized our minmax.min and minmax.max, we can then traverse the entire array and compare rest of the elements with the minimum value and the maximum value that we have already stored. Pause the video once, rewind it, and listen to this once again. What we are doing is, why we are doing these steps is because we want to initialize our minmax.min and minmax.max to a value. Once we have already defined that value prior to traversing our loop, we have something to compare with. Now we have a minimum element also and we have a maximum element also. So we can simply compare it with the rest of the elements in the array, which will be present over here. And by comparing the rest of the elements, we will get to know if there is an element which is much greater than 5 and if there is an element which is much lesser than 4. So what we are doing next is we are traversing the complete array using a for loop from I is equals to 2, which means we are leaving both these elements, 0th and first element, and traversing this part of the loop. Basically, what we are doing is traversing this part of the loop, because for the 0th and the first element, we have already initialized them to two variables, min-max.min, which is 4, and min-max.max, which is 5. From the second element onwards, we will be comparing both our min and max throughout the array. Have a look here. So what we are doing in this function is from I is equals to 2 till the last element of the array, that is less than array length, we are comparing all the elements, that is the ith element. We check that if our ith element is less than min max dot min, which was our minimum element till now, then we assign the value of that ith element to our min max dot min. So let's do a dry run once. What actually we are doing in this for loop? We have already initialized min max dot min and min max dot max. So on what the step 1 will look like, our I is equals to 2, and for I is equals to 2, we are checking our entire array. Basically only this part of the array, which is 3, 1, 2, and 6. So from 3, 1, 2, and 6, we will be checking our minimum element first. So minimum element min max dot min we know is 4, which we had already stored in this part of code. So we will be checking if our second element is less than min max dot min. We know that 3 is less than 4. Therefore, we will be assigning min max dot min the value of 3, because we have found a value which is much lesser than 4. Next, what we are doing is if our ith element is greater than min max dot max. So that is not the case, because if this part of the code has run, this will not run. If this condition is true, this is not true. This is the implementation of if else. If in case you have any doubt, you can check my previous videos. I have already explained this. Since if part is true, else will not be running. Next, we will be checking for I is equals to 3. So now in step 2, we move to I is equals to 3. For I is equals to 3, we have now this element. I is equals to 3 is 1. So for now, 1 we are checking, that is 1 less than our minimum element. So our minimum element right now was 3. So is 1 less than 3? Yes, it is. So again, we will be initializing our minimum element to 1. Assigning the value of min max dot min will now be 1. Now else part will not run, because obviously we know that if has run. So next we will in our step 3 again, we will be checking if our fourth element, which is this element, is less than min max dot min. So is 2 less than 1? No, it is not. Now our else part of the loop will be running. So is 2 greater than our maximum element? Now what was our maximum element? We had initialized it over here, and the value has not changed since then. So it was 5. Is 2 greater than 5? No, it is not. So nothing will be done here. Again, the value of I is incremented. And in our step 4, now we check for this for I is equals to 4, and now we check for I is equals to 5. For step 5, again we check I is equals to 5. I is equals to 5 is which number? It is this 6. So now we check, is 6 less than our minimum element, which is assigned the value of 1. So is 6 less than 1? No, it is not. Nothing will be done. We move to the else part. In the else if part, we check that is our 6 greater than the maximum element? Maximum element has the value of 5. Yes, 6 is greater than 5. So our min max dot max will now be storing the value of, ultimately, here I am writing min max now after running the entire for loop. Max has the value of 6 and min has the value of 1. Right? Basically, using this entire for loop, we traversed the entire array and checked that which element is the minimum. If in case we have find a minimum element, then we assign the value to min max dot min. And if we find an element which is greater, we assign the value to min max dot max. In the end, we just return the value. We are returning min max. Now here you will understand the implementation of this pair data type also. Why we are returning min max? Because min max has the ability to store multiple values. It is storing both the values min max dot min also and min max dot max also. Since it can store two values, it returns two values, and our get min max function will actually be returning multiple values, which was the main objective given in our question itself. It said that our function should be able to return two values. Multiple values should be returned through our function. So we will be able to return multiple values through our function. And in the main function, what we are doing simply, we have an array. We have the number of elements in the array. We call this get min max function. And on calling the get min max function, what we are getting actually, what we had returned, here we had returned min max. So when min max is returned, this is the working of a function which I am explaining right now. So if you want a detailed explanation, feel free to check out my previous videos on functions itself. So we are simply returning function called min max. This min max function will be returned over here. When we call a function, the return values is returned where the function is called. So the get min max function will contain the values of min max dot min and min max dot max. Now, after that, we are simply printing the values of min max dot min and min max dot max. So ultimately, our output for this question will look like minimum element is equals to 1 and maximum element is equals to 10. So I've written the code in a very simple manner. So whichever language you are following, you will be able to understand. The last part is looking at the time complexity. So if we had used two loops, the solution which we had discussed earlier, a brute force approach of using two loops and finding out the minimum and maximum element, then our time complexity would have been different. It would have been big O of n square because we will be using multiple loops. But in this solution, since we are using only one for loop, this is the for loop that we are using, only one for loop, and we are able to find out both the minimum element and the maximum element. So using only one for loop, therefore the time complexity is big O of n, and no extra space is being used, so extra space is constant. Auxiliary space is basically if we are using any extra space apart from the input which we were given. So the input which we were given was this array, and apart from this, we are not using any other extra array or any other extra space. So therefore, the auxiliary space is constant, as no extra space was needed to print our output or execute our program. So this was the complete working of our program and implementation of this question, getting the maximum and minimum of an array using minimum number of comparisons. Now you may have a doubt that why did we use this new structure, this new data type, and why cannot we simply, print the output? Say we run this function and we simply print the output in the function itself, and in the return time we can mention void, return nothing, and simply print it in the get min max itself. But the question clearly mentions that we have to write a function which returns two values. The question wants to check our knowledge of creating a new data type and returning its value, returning multiple values through a single function. So it is compulsory for us to actually make a new function, and then work around it. So I hope all of you were able to understand the solution. If there are any doubts, feel free to revise the video once again, and I'm sure you will be able to get the solution of this question. If there are any doubts, you can also write down in the comments below, and I will be answering all your doubts there itself. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Do like, share, and subscribe to the channel if this video helped you.